And good day, everyone, and welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar and event series. My name is Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. And for more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities nationwide and reaches more than 8,000 individuals. This webinar is part of the Heroes Initiative. The HEROES program brings together former federal scientists to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. We hope this series promotes engagement with our HEROES fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. The recordings of this event and the slides will be available in the QEM Resource Hub. By attending this webinar, you will soon be added to the QEM network and granted access to the Resource Hub. And I'm so happy to introduce our fellows today. Dr. Quincy Brown is the Principal of Futures and Innovation, leading education and workforce strategic development and advising. With over 25 years of experience in engineering and technology, she specializes in STEM education and workforce development. Most recently, Dr. Brown served as Director of Space, STEM, and Workforce Policy in the White House National Space Council. Her career includes senior policy roles across two presidencies in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, Senior Director for Innovation Research at anitaB.org, Program Director for STEM Education Research at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and Computer Science Professor at Bowie State University. Quincy holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and master's and doctoral degrees in computer science. Dr. Frances Carter Johnson is an innovative problem solver with professional experience spanning commercial, academic, government, and nonprofit sectors, as well as multidisciplinary content, data, management, and analytic expertise. Her technical areas of expertise include data science, AI and data, evaluation, public policy, physics, and engineering. And James Smith III is a retiree from the U.S. Department of Defense. In his 20-year career at DoD, he served as a site engineer, software engineer, systems engineer, project director, and an engineering and physical science researcher at the North Carolina University for Analytic Sciences. North Carolina State University, sorry. In these roles, he developed and refined expertise in artificial intelligence and machine learning programming, software engineering, and 3D graphics. He also advanced mission-critical research and partnered with students and faculty from minority-serving institutions in support of research goals. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our presenters today.
Good morning or afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in. Thank you all for joining us for this next meeting, Zoom meeting, instead of a webinar in our AI and data analytics web series for the QEM. This is another fireside chat. We did one in June, and we had a lot of questions about workforce and use of AI in education. And so we wanted to bring that format back. So as you can see from our agenda today, we'll talk to you, show you our previous webinars, because we do get quite a few questions about topics we've covered in previous webinars, and we want you to know that they are a resource. So we will go over where those webinars are and how you can access them. Our fireside chat format today is we want to allow discussion after each section of presentation. So each person will have 1 minute to share out or ask a question. And we have a fun timer that we'll use to control time, because we want to be respectful of everything that everyone wants to share, or what people want to share in this fireside chat format. You can also add thoughts as much as you want to in the chat, and we keep up with those thoughts, the chat conversation, as well as your responses to our questionnaires and webinar feedback form. We are keeping up with that. So we're incorporating some of that in this talk today. Then we'll talk about, what do you do before you use AI or instead of using AI? get into generative AI, agentic AI, and then talk about some of the workforce trends. From the first Fireside chat, we had a question about what trends are we seeing in terms of expectations of graduates and using AI in the workforce. So we have a little bit of information about that that may garner discussion, but also you might be able to use as you're incorporating AI into your classrooms. And then we'll wrap up, take a poll, and talk about the next webinars in our series. As promised, this slide is the slide with our past webinars. All of our past webinars and webinars from all QEM heroes, we refer to that as the QEM national webinars they're available in the QEM Resource Hub. And that is the first link that's available on this slide, as well as all of the rest of our the webinars that we've included in this series. They include we started with ethical and evidence-based of AI-based research tools. You see an introduction or a summary of the webinar, as well as the date that those webinars were made available. And when you go into the Resource Hub, you can either pull these up by the title or by the date. Both are in the Resource Hub. But this slide also gives you a little bit more of what was covered in that particular webinar. So make sure that you pay attention to those if you have questions about particular topics that we might not talk about or go into detail about today. So to get started, we want to think about, is AI even useful? We know everyone is talking about and using AI and wanting to use AI for everything. But is that really necessary? So where do you start? If you're teaching or thinking about your courses and how to incorporate AI, we came up with questions that we think you can think or ask yourself before you just jump into trying to use AI for everything, or feeling justified if you don't use AI as much in teaching your courses, because you can continue in life without using AI for everything. But is AI going to be helpful for teaching and or learning in your course? We want to remember that we don't want AI to bypass critical steps for students to learn and apply foundational knowledge. If you have students that you're teaching or children in your family, you can see that sometimes they are using AI before they even generate their own ideas. We don't want that to happen. We want students, especially the next generation, to have their own ideas and not to use AI as a crutch, but as a tool. And we don't want to replace student learning, knowledge, and understanding. And as we talk more about the workplace and students graduating from college and using it in the workplace, their content knowledge as an engineer, as a computer scientist, or data scientist is still very important, as they might go in and build an AI tool or AI bot for an organization. So those are the main reasons why student learning, knowledge, and your content knowledge is really, really important. And we should always ask ourselves, how did students learn before AI? And what must they know and understand before they turn and use AI? So just some critical questions to think about as you are thinking about using AI in your teaching and learning. You can use AI in teaching and learning. You can guide students on how to use it for different assignments. And you can also think about whether AI is helpful or for personalizing learning or automating your assessment. So automating your grading, automating your interaction with students. Those are the two areas that we thought you wanted to think about in terms of how you can use AI. And then what we're going to get into for the rest of this conversation is, if you're using AI, what are some appropriate approaches or tools that can be used to support teaching and learning? What are the different types of AI? So and how can they be used? So that's where we'll go next. So this is a time for discussion, so we can pull up our timer, Christine, and if you have any examples of how you are using AI and how it's been helpful for teaching and learning, or helpful with personalizing learning, or helpful with automating assessment, please feel free to raise your hand. We didn't say that at first, but the format will be that you raise your hand if you have something to share, or if you have a question, and you'll have to share out. just as an overview, we are really taking a pulse in the room right now. How are you using AI already, if at all? So maybe the first, if you don't have a question of how you're using it, maybe we can add into the chat, um, not using or using. Tiki, I want to say that is the very good. Thank you. Thank
That
you,
is
Greg.
correct.
Go ahead.
So currently, I use AI with researching, finding data for grant writing. So using it for that, you have to be very specific that you want data from peer review sources. Because I had the experience when first starting to use AI. What is the percentage of students receiving free and reduced price lunch in the Jefferson County area? And it gave me a number. It was like, okay, well, I need to cite this. I said, well, can you show me the citations? And then when it went back and pulled the citations, the percentage was different. I was like, okay. I was kind of like, wait, so you just gonna just throw out anything if I just ask? But so you have to be very specific. You have to know what questions to ask. And that's when we're working with students as well. If they're pulling up something for a research paper or something like that, we have to say, look, you have to be specific with your questions. So you still have work to do. It's not AI doing your work for you. It's a tool, just like grammar and spell check is a tool. You have to know what questions to ask when using it for, whatever specific purpose that you're trying to use it for.
Thank you so much. We completely agree, and we will talk about that a little bit more. That was a perfect example. Dr. Erickson?
Hello, everyone. Um, so I am actually very concerned about what to teach my students in terms of using AI. We know there's a necessary tool, and when I think of students, I'm not even thinking really of of college students. I'm thinking of anywhere from K through 12. And I'm actually looking at what should I be teaching and great examples for how they should be using it in their as they learn. And so I'm hoping that we talk about things like that as well. What are the best practices? We talked about how we personally use it, and I use it all the time. I use it to help me with my grammar and sentence structure, flow of thought, sometimes a quick draft. But I really want to make sure that my students aren't using it just as Francis mentioned, that the students are not using it as the first go-to, say, in a design. And I find that that's the case when we look at when we're doing robotic programming. And they're actually, Dr. E, we didn't do it ourselves. I was like, what? Like, no, all the program I've given you over the years, you didn't start this off and then use AI to enhance. And I really would like to make sure that I'm teaching them the right ways to use it. So I hope that conversation happens today.
I got I saw a good use case yesterday of AI being used. It was using I was at Shaw University helping my son get his student ID, and the administrators there were using ChatGPT. It was embedded in their system. And basically what they created was a process to where it shows the student when you put in your name, it shows where you are in the process and your next steps. And I just happened to be looking at the screen and saw that they was using it. I asked the lady, I'm like, are you guys using it to do this or is it embedded and it's giving you your answers? And she said, no, it's embedded. She was totally against it at first. But she said as time went on, she found out that it helped her with her color code because she couldn't really match up the colors correctly. It helped with alignment of boxes on the page. It just made her life easier as far as her job, even though she was not familiar with it at all, but she learned how to use it. So that was just a good use case of me watching some in real time of an administrator who never used any type of AI using ChatGPT to create all these things in real time.
Yeah, I'll just add, I dropped a link in the chat about a report, I guess it's earlier in the year that Brookings released around K-12 education and the use of AI in for lower grades. And to me, some of the take home was don't. But I think for a lot of things, as we'll talk about, we'll mention the jury is still out, right, about exactly what to do and how to do. But I think it's a little different when your goal is to provide them with the foundational knowledge, right, and teach them the foundational knowledge. How you do that in a way that doesn't put their learning of the fundamentals at risk. But that report, there's a link on that page there to the report. You can download the report and read about, the study that they did, and some of their findings around the use of it in K-12 education in particular.
I was trying as our last comment. I really appreciated Bill's comment in the chat using AI to create lists of strengths and weaknesses for candidates and to summarize weekly activities. So I'm wondering, is that coming from their assessments, their weekly assessments, their list of strengths, or where that was coming from? But I don't know if Bill is still on with us. But this was great discussion on this topic. I think we can move on to the next slides, and that would be Quincy.
Okay, so it sounds like some of what we'll cover here, may be more or less familiar to folks, but we wanted to just kind of go over the what is generative AI. So we'll talk about two different types, generative and agentic, here, and just to cover that, this is really focused on the creation of new content. And I've put in parentheses there that it's not necessarily original content, right? But it's new content. Yeah, I'll keep my bias aside. But that's based on patterns of data, right? And these can be text, audio, images, video, code, and some common platforms include, Chat, GPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini are some common, I think the more common generative AI platforms that people use. And some of the challenges that come up in education, and just in general, but not just education, but that, academic honesty, right? So there's lots of concern around, I'll just call it cheating, right? Academic honesty, but also misinformation, disinformation, as Tiki, I think, mentioned, right? Sometimes you will get a result. That doesn't mean that the result is accurate. So there's some misinformation, and there's also some intentional disinformation that's out there, that will be returned as results. Lots of conversation and thoughts around employment shifts. Some are grounded in data, others are not, and so we'll touch on that also. And then for a lot of this, there are unclear rules for how this is used. Some universities have policies, others do not. Some are trying to figure out what their policy is. And would imagine as the technology continues to evolve, that policy will continue to evolve as well. And so I think we, kind of come up with this: is it encouraged? Is it discouraged? In some cases, it's prohibited, and in others, there is limited use. So we're looking at all of the above. Intentional disinformation. I think there are, I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely. I guess, they're facts and alternative facts. And some people's thinking around alternative facts as being facts, right? And so you are putting information into the ether or into these systems or onto the internet that these systems then pull from, that are heavy on, I wouldn't call them facts because they could be disproven, but people have different intentions for wanting people to believe certain things. And so if you can, yeah, I don't,
I would say
I'll just leave it at that. Go
I
ahead,
would say
James.
I was gonna say a good example is like deep fakes, where you can have people saying things that's not really there, or that's not them saying it. And that's one of the things we research is like, how can you tell if that is the person saying the things that they're saying? So
That's a
deep
great
fakes is a good
example.
example of intentional disinformation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And so there's some people who do that on purpose. Um, And so, kind of the way we've, next slide, start to think about this is in three different categories, right? Around generation, detection, and disclosure. And I mentioned before that some commonly used platforms include Claude, right? ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Canva. Also noting that, AI has been around since the 50s. I mean, it's, but I can't do the math, 70, 80 years old. But a lot of what we're talking about now has been brought on by these, publicly available products that, hadn't been available to the general public, beyond the past couple of years. So these are common platforms. And that is really around the generation, right? And then the next slide, is around detection. So if you're trying to understand, you hear a lot about, everyone's using it or all the students use it, right? There are some tools out there that where you can, enter text and it will give you some sort of rating, a percentage or a level of probability or certainty that what was the text that you input was generated by AI. Or I've seen some that say like, generated by like 100% the content was generated by AI, or whether it was written by AI, like editing wise, or like 100%, original content. And so these are three tools that I'm aware of. I'm sure there are lots of others, but Pangram is one, Turnitin, Grammarly. But I have this caveat there that you should use those with a grain of salt because these are, it's not a guarantee, right? The reliability and accuracy of these tools is not 100%, right? Based on the model that they are. Again, they're AI just like the other AI, which has, has some known flaws and some known things that are, incorrect or inaccurate about it. And so, I'm sharing these and lots of people will talk about these, but they're not necessarily a replacement for a discussion with the student, right? It's not as simple as, you get something back, you put it in a checker and you're like, "Brr," and so there's more to there possibly could be more to the story, but relying solely on what one of these tools, responds to you or tells you about what it thinks is about the text may not be the wisest path, right? This is part of the information if you're trying to detect, but not necessarily the only information. And then the last thing I want to cover here is around disclosure. So there are, there's increasing use of, right, statements that describe how AI was used, right? So this is similar to like a citation, right? You can see in documents or in research or in papers where there will be an AI disclosure statement that will describe if this was used for the content, right? Was the idea or the research question generated by AI? Was the literature review? So I think Tiki mentioned, using this to find some data, right? Did you use this to identify your data, do your data collection, or, maybe your data validation or, your actual analysis itself? Was that done with AI? Software development, right? Was your writing, I think Greg put in the chat, about writing and editing, right? Did you just use it for writing and editing? So there's two different frameworks. One is this generative AI delegation taxonomy, and that has a generator where you can fill in the blanks and it'll generate your statement. And the AI disclosure statement builder is similar. You fill in the information, it'll generate a statement. They have slightly different taxonomies, but they generally kind of fall into these categories of where you can disclose how AI was used in the production of either the paper or the study or the, whatever it may be. I think that's you, Francis.
And so we wanted to provide some thoughts and tips about how to guide students and how to teach using AI. And we've talked about this. Tiki talked about it. This has come out in our sharing, and we want to hear more about it from you. But encouraging students to write prompts based on independently developed outlines from their knowledge that's gained from the course or from their ideas about that knowledge. So again, you do not need to tell ChatGPT to answer every homework question or write your paper before you've thought about it. So really, and maybe that becomes a part of the the assignment. Okay, I know you're going to use AI. Let's talk about what prompts we might use before that are based on the class, based on the course material, and then to help them to decipher information that AI provides, whether is it relevant or is it non-relevant for a specified topic, right? For a very specific topic. So I give, an example. I was big in the optical fiber back in my heavy science days. Optical fiber is still necessary. So some students might be doing research or in an optical fiber class or physics class, and you might want to think about how optical fiber is still is used now in Wi-Fi networks. So a general prompt might be, write me 10 pages on the benefits of optical fiber in Wi-Fi networks, since 2020. That is going to give you, as Tiki talked about earlier, it might not give you scholarly journal articles. It might give you news articles about this or business articles from businesses, right, that are promotions or they're commercially related. So having students better specify a prompt to say, you want to summarize the benefits of optical fiber and Wi-Fi networks from 10, so this is the general statement, 10 relevant and independently sourced journal articles, but you've already pulled those journal articles. You've already gone to your search, your citation index or Google Scholar, and you have done a search on articles that are relevant and that are recent. And you put those 10 articles into whatever tool you're using and ask for a summary that you would then verify. This will probably give you better results because the prompt is better specified, and you and the student themselves, they've done the research on what are relevant and what are important articles. You can see the journal or the source of those articles. And it helps them to learn to decipher between the type of information that AI gives. And if you're going to allow it, you are still in control. I think that's the way we wanted to teach to talk about it. And we've talked, I think, at um, our previous fireside chat and in previous conversations with university professors that sometimes professors are afraid of it, are afraid of AI. They're afraid of AI taking over. But these sessions that we are doing are we're hoping to help you build your experience and expertise with it and using it in teaching, and to be able to let students know that you are AI savvy as well and you are in control. So continue to incorporate in-person live human queries in your class discussion, in your homework, midterms, and on your finals. And what do we mean about a live human query? In class, I guess you can use your phone to look up the answer to the question. But they don't have enough, as you're having class discussions about the material that's in the book or the material that's been provided, whether it's an electronic book or not, really having those lively class discussions about the material from the book. And also in homework, being able to, you can check your homework problems that you're providing to see if they're available in AI before you assign those problems. But being able to get responses back from students um, where they can't use AI. And this is not new. Midterms and finals. When I was in college at Georgia Tech, we had this thing called Word, right? You had all the old homework, you had all the old tests, but the teacher changed the questions on the midterm and the final. So the same thing, those in-class, in-person live human queries where where you can test how much work students are doing on their own. And don't wait until the midterm and final to use these, I think, right? You want to gauge if your students are learning or if they're using AI at all times to do all of their assignments. So we're encouraging that you incorporate those in-person live human queries very regularly. You are still in charge. We can all use AI as a crutch, and we should not be using AI as a crutch. Let's, continue to teach and encourage students to learn as well without using AI. So that brings us to our next discussion topic. Quincy talked about, different generative AI tools. We've talked about Claude, ChatGPT, Google. And so what tools are you using for teaching and learning? Why are you using the tools, and how do you use the tools? So another time for discussion. Please chime in. Raise your hand and unmute.
does checking homework work? I mean, I use the tool like my son when he comes home with his math work, and I believe he was doing logarithm proofs or something. I haven't done that since college. Have no clue. And I think my wife was sitting around and they was trying to solve this one particular problem. My first response, throw it into Chat GPT and see what it puts out. And then from there, let's understand the process to get the answer. That way, when you get back to doing your homework assignment, you at least understand the process versus I guess I'm not looking at just sitting there all day trying to figure it out. Go ahead, give me the answer, and then I can learn the process, then I can apply that to something else. So that's how I'm using the tools to help my son when they trying to learn something.
Very good point.
Yeah, I wonder how many people use it to learn the process versus just use it to get the answer. Because those are two different, right? Those are two different things. And as an
Oh,
educator, I would much prefer that it's used to provide, identify insight into the process
right.
versus just to get the answer. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He's probably knowing him, he probably just want to get the answer
It's
so he can move on. But like you say, if the teacher say show your work, you got to understand the process to get to that answer. And to me, that's where these tools come in very handy to where, okay, you may not understand from the notes or what the teacher was giving you. Here's another way in learning.
Great examples, guys. I completely agree to, jar our memories of these very specific topics. Um, what so I think so from lack of response, does that mean that no one is using generative AI tools for teaching and learning? Other people on the call beside the speakers? Ying, thank you for unmuting. Yep, did you
Yep.
mean to unmute? Is that what we should take from this? That no, you are not necessarily using it?
So, Francis, I am not using it yet, but the plan is for me to design a class prior to us doing our programming for our robots this year. And I want to make sure that the students are using it correctly. I am very fearful, and I put in the chat that I resonate with Quincy's question because my fear, and I've seen this, which when my students, unbeknownst to me, were using ChatGPT and other things to do their programs, when they go to try to fix that program, they really don't know how to fix the computer, the programming that they've developed. And I think that is why I resonate so well with Quincy, because I'm like, okay, if you didn't start it or you didn't understand how you got this answer, then how can you fix it or improve upon it?
And so I think the thought that's what this conversation we're trying to have. How do we as teachers take control of that? And do you break it down right into smaller problems? Do we go back to how we had to learn coding? Um, thinking about not just letting them come in with the answer, but will your class sessions now be let's solve a simple algorithm together. Let's design a simple algorithm, run it, test it, like forcing them to do it on their own. I think we had some other people on mute.
Yes, I'd unmuted because I'm in the process of actually looking over my classes and what I should be doing in terms of using more of generative AI tools to help the students. And one of the things that I've been working on that I started last semester was the illustrations, just coming up with new figures. When you think of imaging technologies that are coming in, and you find out if you're using textbook, they are not clear illustrations that are helping students. So trying to see what better illustrations I can have quickly when I'm teaching, I think has been helpful in especially from a systemic standpoint when I'm looking at do they understand an end-to-end system? And I'm in electrical engineering, and a lot of work that gets done at times can be component-based, that the student, not just a small piece, but I think the current student need to understand the end-to-end system. And I found generative AI kind of helpful in that, where I can quickly illustrate.
Are you referring, do you mean that you're using it to like, yeah, how do you use it to show that they're illustrating the end-to-end system?
So I can do a prompt. So what happens, some students say, why am I learning this particular concept? I can be doing basic logic circuits, but the student doesn't understand how it fits into the big scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So now I can illustrate from the point of input and go through the conversion steps all the way to the end input, and then show in their class process where they can fit in. Or it could be an energy conversion system. I can do the same thing. One other particular example that I can use, we're teaching an ethics and safety class, and we're looking at a fault analysis problem in that for safety. And we're having difficult ways in which we could get the student to understand a more complex system, and it was a reactor, and actually use a quick illustration to bring in a prompted, and it gave a better figure that could help the students follow in their fault analysis to see how that system can be analyzed. I don't know whether that helps everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
In my classes, I encourage students to use the Copilot to write the report. I always encourage students to, which is the AI. This is the new technology. I recommend to them, don't think it's AI. Just think AI as your friend or some tutor, and then use to this technology. This is the tool, and then which this was a tool make a communication. You use to this is the tool, and then you repeat use the this is like a human. You use this is the human. You can communicate the skill more better. You like you say the prompt. You use the prompt. How to use the prompt, and then ask this is the question. So get more better answer. I always say this to the student. Don't think it's AI. Just think he's one of your friend. So you can use like you don't need to think the fear. Someone is scared. Oh, this is a technology, the tool. Don't think it that way. Just think it is a regular person. This I tell students.
Thank you.
And they say, why do you use the tool? The technology, why don't you use it? This tool to help you a progression in the learning process.
Thank you everyone for sharing, and that was a very lively discussion for this section. We really appreciate all the examples of sharing. We will move on to our next set of slides, because we have one more, I think, opportunity for discussion again. Thank you, guys.
All right. What we're going to talk about now is agentic AI. Basically, I want to say, if you watch movies, if you ever watched Terminator, think Skynet. Basically, it's an autonomous artificial intelligence system that can act on its own, but through reasoning and adjustment and action based on the prompts you get it. Now, we're not trying to take over the world here, but you're trying to build a system that can help you within the classroom to do maybe lighten the load just a little bit, whether it's with the students or it's with the professor itself. Next slide. So some of the examples as far as students, you can come up with personalized learning plans, courses, electives based on the student schedule, the year, and all that. You can monitor the progress. I remember a story a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to a professor, and he told me the story where he came up with a system to where he monitored the students' progress in class, and he displayed that in the class. It's like a game where you can see the score and and rank the students in order. And he got in trouble for it because basically his goal was trying to encourage the students to learn and get better, but he was hit. They came down on him because it was displaying the students' information, and it was making students feel bad because if you're at the bottom, it's showing you at the bottom, and if you're at the top, of course you're doing fine. So this is just some of the ways you can do it. Of course, you got to think about the privacy issues associated with that. And if you have students that have questions, and if it's just general questions, you can come up with a Q&A that's 24/7 where they can email you and the system itself can respond based on the question. And if it needs more, if it's the question keeps coming and keeps coming, then maybe that's where you get the human element involved. Now, as far as on the faculty side, of course, you can create a syllabus, grade assignments, come up with different teaching resources. But the whole goal is not to have AI do everything for you and try to take over the classroom, but just as an assistant. So you go to the next slide. Oh, there you go, Tarina.
I just wanted to say real quick, you could, if you have a relationship with that person that you gave an example of getting in trouble, have the students come up with nicknames that only he knows.
Yeah,
And then that way they don't know who each student doesn't know who the other student is unless they choose to tell people what their nickname
right.
is. So he could still do it without exposing their information.
I mean, I know this is a stretch. I mean, we used to do that in football where you had tryouts. You're not gonna put the person's name up there. You just put maybe the last four digit of their social, and you will see if you made the team or if you did make the team. But it's not embarrassing. So yeah, I agree with you. You can come up
Mhm.
with ways to do it, but the whole goal is to come up with a system to where it's autonomous and it works side by side. You can give it prompts and it can handle all the processing and all the actions and adjustment. And if it needs to be pushed to an upper level, and maybe that's where the human element will come in. And so I have some examples. Next slide. So, oh, sorry. Some of the issues which we touched on, you definitely want to have oversight. You want that human in the loop. You don't want to deal with hallucination where you put in information and you know what you're getting back is wrong. And you definitely want to have the bias and the fairness in there. And like I said before, as far as privacy concerned, you want to make sure you're not exposing the students, whether it's good or bad, that personal information. And of course, security risk, that's going to always be there. You try to do what you can, but coming from a security background, if somebody wants to get your stuff, it's really hard to prevent it. Uh, so some of the things you can help do to help alleviate that risk is always keep a human loop, logs and audits, all things that's in the agentic AI. That way you can always go back and see exactly what this system did, what it was recommending. Monitor all the bias and the hallucinations, security vulnerability. You try to patch what you can patch. Depending on the tool that you're using, some things is just inevitable that you may not be able to do anything about it. Of course, continue to update and retrain your agents. That's one way to where you can keep your system up to date and help alleviate some of the security issues. And you want to test constantly. If this is an autonomous system that's going to act independent or in collaboration with the professor, you constantly want to test this thing out, and hopefully it gets to a point to where you can share it and it's doing what it's supposed to do, and you monitoring through the audits and the logs. So next slide. So these are just some tools. If you want to build your own AI system, it goes from no code to full code. No code is basically a drag and drop. You fill it in, you put in your logic, and it processes it. It creates your agentic AI, and you can use it. All the way up to full code. Basically, you downloading the models from Hugging Face, and you using Python to build it out. So this is just some of the examples, but some of these things cost money. If you like me, you go to the next slide. I'm an open source guy. So here are some open source AI frameworks that you can download right now. One of the ones I would recommend is the Auto GPT, because that's basically, it tries to minimize the human input. And so you can test it out and build it out. And the goal is to have the system do as much as it can without you having to constantly update it. But at the same time, you can add like the logs and the audit. That way you can see if it's doing what it's supposed to do. So I would definitely recommend Auto GPT. Outside of that, next slide. Okay, here's some of the discussions. I'm assuming, is anyone using agentic AI, or has anyone ever thought about using it within the classroom to create syllabus assessments or just to monitor the students' progress in your class?
Or are you interested in, maybe you're
Yeah.
not currently, but are you interested in learning how?
I'm in the
I'm
process of
Oh,
learning, actually working to improve my syllabus and come up with updated rubrics and assessment using.
yeah.
I'm using mostly generative AI,
Yeah.
but I am interested in using agents to like be tutors or
Yep. Yep.
TAs for me.
No, that's good. I think that's excellent. Like, especially if you have a certain questions, certain syllabus that you know you can feed into the system, and as it learns how you think and how you do your questions, that's hands down, that's what it's for. And you can prompt it at the same time. So, all right, good.
This is interesting. So, like, I did my dissertation work, a while ago on intelligent tutoring systems, and for math education for like introductory math courses on, in university. And so this reminds me a little bit of that. And so I'm curious about with this technology, because it's been a minute, but like the models of, well, I was doing like models of cognition and understanding, and how much of this, if you're using this, as was just mentioned, to like create a tutor, right? How much of this you allow the tutor to do, and how much of it you allow the student to do actually works, not just at the interface level, but like in the underlying model, and what that means, and
Yeah.
how it interprets, and what it thinks, how it how it interprets and what it thinks the student knows or doesn't know based on that interaction. So I'm just kind of sitting over here geeking out.
I did not say this earlier, but I want to use it as a time now. We'll say it later too. We as QEM Heroes have office hours. So if there's a particular topic that you're interested in, audio, video, AI and video, that's James's area. Quincy just revealed her area, right? Intelligent tutoring system. So if you would like to connect with one of us on those topics, you can definitely sign up for office hours, because it sounds like you and Tandika could have a great conversation about that, Quincy, to really talk about building those out. We will move to the next few slides. We have about 10 minutes left, and we want to allow a little bit more discussion. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Quincy.
So I'll just say, right, like the truth is we actually don't know what the future holds, or what the impact of AI will have on, jobs and careers. And I'll add to this. or education, right? I think the jury's still out. It's too soon to tell. We do know that AI is not like a single factor or the single factor in the employment shifts that we've been seeing, right? Overall, right now, the impact of AI on employment is small, right? But there is evidence of, it's having disparate impacts on workers in different career stages. So, right, there seems to be a slowdown of hiring for early career workers in exposed occupations. In some analyses, and then in other analyses, right, there seems to be no difference in the hiring of entry level workers based on whether or not an organization does or doesn't use AI. So, like, depends on what data you analyze, right? Based on, like your vertical, your sector, or even your country, right? There are differences. I'm not an economist or labor market analyst, but right, like people who are doing this generally have a couple of conclusions. And so I think really to me, the bigger picture is we don't really know. Right. But there's some things that we know we need to do. So before I get to that, there's a couple of sites here. Oops.
Okay, you did want that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did want them. There are a couple of sites here that I wanted to share. And so previously I mentioned, in careers that are exposed, right? So there's like this AI resilience report, which has a list of, I don't know, over 1,000 occupations, and it can give you an analysis, right? In the screenshot there on the side is a little bit of like what goes into that analysis, but it's around, how much of the jobs worked still depends on humans, right? Like meaningful human interaction. What are employers hiring for the role, right? Will this career continue to pay well, right? There are projections on that. So it comes up with this index, right? And you can put in the name of a career: software developer, nurse, welder, and it'll kind of give you its analysis of that career. Another one that people use is the AI job risk index, and that there again, I've kind of little insight into their methodology is around like a higher score means, right, you are more, that occupation is at more risk. And that's about it having like routine, standardized, or information processing heavy work associated with that particular occupation. So you can look and see for a range of occupations, kind of what people are thinking about with regard to risk for a particular job. The Economic Indicators Canaries dashboard is very information data rich. And it also kind of goes into sectors. It also goes into like age/career stages. And that's where you find, you can see some of the differences between early career, mid-career, senior level workers and the different impacts of that. And again, some of it is related to AI, but other impacts are not related to AI, right? Interest rates and, other things going on with the economy have an impact on economic shifts and job shifts. And so I think that the main takeaway for this is on the next slide, is that, right, like part of this is how we are, and a lot of what we've talked about is how we are providing students with scaffolding and guidance, right? And I think that the main things, because tools will change, right? So we could like go deep into any particular tool right now, but in a year, 6 months, 9 months, to 5 years, right, it's going to be different. And so it's important that they understand what AI is and what it is not, right? Pick a tool, pick the general area. Again, it depends on your discipline. It's also important that they understand when, how, and whether to even use AI, right? Some jobs are going to want you to use it, others may not. Others may want you to know, right? Be discerning when to use it, when not to use it. And I think as we've talked about, it's important to provide opportunities for students to gain experience, right? And using it appropriately, whether that's with disclosure, right? Like in certain ways for maybe one assignment, you kind of give them the leeway, but you kind of do that scaffolding, right? And provide that guidance so that they understand and they can speak when they go to the job market. Oh, I have experience doing XYZ, or discerning using it this way versus that way. I think that's part of, what as educators, our responsibility is to students in this particular moment, is to teach them again, what it is, how, when, whether to use it, and then to provide them with the actual experience to do so. I think that's it. Yeah. Is that me too?
That conversation, we'll take some time for questions, definitely. Maybe we'll, but that question, how to use AI in our classrooms, is the topic of our next webinar, September 22nd. And then we hope to get some hands-on experience. We hope to provide you all some hands-on experience with using AI. I'll let you look at those topics and we'll take a question, or Ying has his hand raised. Which time do we have?
You know, sometimes AI give us the wrong answer. How do you deal with this issue?
Right. I think that's part of it, right? In the understanding when to use it and not, as I think as Francis started out with, we shouldn't use these tools, which is they're just tools like any other tool, as a replacement for understanding and learning the foundational knowledge, right? Foundational content, because you may not know if it's giving you the wrong answer or not. I think someone else mentioned, right, being able to question and say, where did you get this answer from? What are your sources? And then seeing if it's pulling, right, from credible, either peer-reviewed, validated, trusted sources, because it'll give you, and it will always return an answer, right? And I think it's up to the user to be able to discern, right, and understand whether that answer is accurate or reliable. And I think that's part of what we have to teach students.
Oh, yes, I agree. You said the fundamental knowledge first you should have. So you can ask, so you can analyze, is it right or wrong? Yes.
Yeah.
We agree. We have some quick polls that we want people to take before they leave, because we want, these polls are to determine what we might do in the hands-on workshops. So Christine, if you can launch it. Okay. If you all would respond to the questions in this poll, we would greatly appreciate it. Shouldn't take long. And again, this is for you. What would you be interested in? On which generative AI tool? These are the ones we're mentioning here. What teaching duty would you want to learn about how to automate using AI? And then does your university use an educational LMS system? We just want to kind of understand what systems you're using as we think about developing the workshops. Did we get some responses?
Yes, we did. Shall I share them?
Sure.
Okay. We still have some people responding, so
Yeah, you
we
can.
have another 10 seconds.
Can we, I'll go to the next slide as people are still responding. This is our contact information. Quincy, myself, and James, and we have a webinar feedback form. So please fill out the webinar feedback form, the Heroes webpage. There's a QR code for it, and also the QEM events page. So if you want to see what other webinars are being offered by other QEM heroes, this is where you can go to do that. Claude comes out most, creating personalized student learning plans or grading assignments. No responding to student emails. Interesting. And okay, great. Most people are using Canvas. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you all for attending and discussing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, for attending today. We really appreciate your attendance. And as our presenter said, we have resources on this closing slide. You may contact any of our presenters from today. You may go to the QEM events page to sign up for future webinars. You may go to our Heroes webpage to contact a fellow about any grant writing and educational development issues, including AI use that you may have. And we would really appreciate you responding to the webinar feedback form to see what we can do differently in the future. Thank you so much for attending today.